Aye.
Thank you all for joining in today. Francesca, if we're ready, would you please do the roll call?
Yes. Chair O'Neill,
Present?
Vice Chair Wotowski,
Here.
Commissioner Castagna,
Here.
Commissioner Evans,
Here.
Commissioner Peak,
Present.
Commissioner Sovereign,
Here.
Commissioner Wall, who I know is here, but stepped away, it appears.
Should we see a record button, a red button on the screen to confirm that we are
Yeah.
recording?
AMPAS. They have done
I
so.
see a little red button in the upper left-hand corner of my screen.
Okay,
There we go.
now I see one.
Here. Yeah, it says. So this will take the place of minutes?
Well,
No, this is so that the program can be recorded and then shown on AMP TV, and then also so that people can watch it live and call in for public comments, so that we're in compliance with the Brown Act.
okay, so the first item on our agenda is approval of minutes. Did everyone have an opportunity to read? Do you have any comments or questions on the minute? Can we get a motion to approve, please?
Move approval.
Second.
And I have Bill as second. Who was first?
Bob Evans.
Bob Evans.
Thank you, Bob.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Do you need us to do it a different way, Francesca?
Kathleen is.
Francesca, is that sufficient for you to take the count, or do you want to go down one at a time?
I think you need to take roll.
Seven. Yes,
I mean,
thank you.
I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Aye.
So, okay, thank you. Commissioner Evans,
Yes. Aye.
Commissioner Castagna,
Yes.
Commissioner Peak,
Aye.
Commissioner Wall. Commissioner Wall. I'll return to her. Vice Chair Wotowski
Aye, aye.
and Chair O'Neill
Aye?
and Commissioner Wall. Do you approve the consent agenda? The minutes? Are you able to hear us, Commissioner Wall?
Hi, Kathleen, can you hear us?
She had tried to call in, it seemed, on her phone. So we can return to her once. You'd like, we can open since public comments is next.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any public comments today on items not on the agenda?
So for anybody watching, we recommend that you watch via YouTube as it has the shortest delay. If you would like to call in to make a public comment, please dial 831-225-0330. Enter the code 19276 648 followed by the pound sign. And again, that number is 831-225-0330. The code is 1927648 followed by the pound sign. And Kathleen, are you able to hear us as we wait a moment? No. Well, there are no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public comment and proceed to the first item on our agenda, which is to receive a Museum and Cultural Arts Division activity report. Inga, will you
Yes.
be giving that report?
I will give that report. So unlike the previous reports that you've received from museum staff with lots and lots of numbers and great quotes from visitors, wonderful pictures of events, this is very brief because, of course, the museums are closed. So I've been, so just walking you through this quickly, I've been checking Colton Hall and the old Monterey jail once a week just to make sure that things are safe and the humidifier in the old jail is emptied. At the lower Presidio Historic Park, I've been checking the museum. I've cleaned the interpretive signs, which of course, because they're outdoors, the birds land on them and so forth. I've just been keeping an eye on the lower Historic Park. Then I haven't been back to the PBL, but that will be checked monthly. And then I put a chart in for our cell phone tours. So 63 doesn't look great, but the numbers actually have gone up since the middle of May, and I think we'll just continue to see the numbers climbing back up again because people are out and about. We all know that there are tourists that have been returning, and people are interested in our historic resources, and so I'm really glad that we have that cell phone tour up and running. Regarding planning and projects, we had talked a little bit about the Path of History Master Plan that had been mentioned in the activity report from our last meeting. And Dennis had reminded me that the process was first to get the draft plan, then have it go to the committee that's been working on it, the subcommittee, and then to take it to the full commission. So I wasn't presenting it in this packet to you, and it's quite a substantial document. But it was a little unclear to me. In Dennis's notes, it said that there was a history subcommittee that would look at it first. And in the list of subcommittees, I didn't see a history subcommittee. So are any of you familiar with being on a committee that was tasked with looking at the path of history and the master plan?
Wouldn't that be HBC? Which is not a subcommittee.
Okay, so who would that be?
Well, the Historic Preservation Commission.
Oh,
I'm just guessing, but
oh no, it's a subcommittee of your group.
I don't think we have one by that name.
Okay. I can double check with Dennis. Yes. All right. Then under collections, I mentioned that on June 8th, we temporarily relocated some of the artwork from Colton Hall in preparation for a large peaceful protest that took place the following day. There was just some concern on the city leaders' side of things that they wanted to make sure that objects were safe. So, but it was a peaceful peaceful proceedings, and that was good. And I appreciated that they wanted to meet all in front of Colton Hall, and they saw it as a really important historic site to have their protest. Then on June 24th, First Alarm. So we've been getting lots of phone calls from First Alarm, getting to know those folks, because the cameras are very sensitive at the Father Sarah Monument. And when the wind blows and the weeds blow back and forth, it looks like there's something happening on the cameras. So I've been up there several times. And most recently, it was a young child trying to climb over the fence. But the alarm system is in good functioning order. Dennis was honored by the round table, which was great. And then finally, Dennis Taylor from the Herald is planning to do an article on Dennis. So we look forward to seeing that as well. And that's it for the activity report.
Didn't that article come out a couple weeks ago? I think it did.
Oh, maybe so.
It was a very good article. Very
Okay.
long.
Has the Sarah monument statue actually been removed?
No, the Sarah monument has not been removed, but that is a good question. A lot of communities are rethinking having a Sarah monument as part of their city collection of monuments or statues. The statue in Carmel was removed for safekeeping. And
maybe that's what I was confused. It was the one there that was
right. There was an interesting article on the cover of the Herald that showed our monument, and then it proceeded to talk about the relocation of the one in Carmel. But
okay, that's my confusion.
Yeah, it is a good question whether or not to continue to have that monument at that location. And so we'll continue to sort of have to sort that out. It is a very large piece. And so if it were to be moved, I read about how it was installed, and they had to actually divert a train tracks to the location and use a steam engine to install it. That was back in 1891. It's a gift of Jane Stanford, who was Leland Stanford's wife. And after his passing, she continued. So they founded Stanford University, and after his passing, she continued to do philanthropic work. And she felt strongly about there being a Father Sarah monument at that location. So
I was wondering if the current security is adequate, or if we need to enhance it given the possible threats. Sounds like it can't be toppled or removed, so that's good. But they may do something else. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think we remember that it was damaged back in 2016 when the head was removed, and the hands have been damaged in the past. But the good thing is the cameras are very sensitive, and so if anybody is touching the monument, then I'll get a phone call.
Okay.
Okay.
And police will be dispatched at the same time,
Good.
which is helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a clarification question about the removal or the storage of the artifacts from Colton Hall for
Yes.
the demonstration. Are they what exactly were those artifacts, and then are they back now, or are they just staying in storage for the time being?
So they're still in storage, and we're thinking after the 4th of July, which is another opportunity for large groups to gather and possibly for things to get a little out of hand, then I think that it would be best to put them back in place. Yeah.
What were they?
So there's the painting of Washington. that hangs in Colton Hall, and there are a couple of other portraits that are in Colton Hall, and those were relocated to the safe, the vault in the city clerk's office.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Inge. Were there any public comments on this presentation? Okay, thank you. We can't hear you, Francesca.
Thank you. Continues to happen. So anyone who would like to make a public comment, we invite you to please call 831-225-0330. You will enter the number 1927648 followed by the pound sign. And again, that number is 831-225-0330. Enter the conference ID number 1927648 followed by the pound sign. Callers are automatically muted upon entry, and we ask you to press *5 to be placed in the queue to speak.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you as well. And Commissioner O'Neill, there are no callers.
Thank you. So we'll close public comment on that issue. Kathleen, can you hear us? You have to unmute your, there we go. Can we hear Kathleen now?
Hi. Yes.
Hi. Okay. Francesca, did you need to get her?
Yes, present. And then do you approve the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Took me a while. Sorry.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is an update on budget reductions and staffing. And Inga, are you going to do that as well?
I will, but I thought we had received the Lower Presidio annual report.
Yeah.
Isn't that next?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that is next.
Yes. I
Item
missed one. I apologize.
3. So every year, so of course the Lower Presidio Park is leased from the Army, and every year the city prepares a report according to certain criteria set by the Army about what was done the previous 12 months. And I had assumed that this body, the commission, typically received this report, but I spoke with Commissioner Wachowski this morning, and he didn't remember ever having seen it before. So if I had realized you hadn't typically seen it, then maybe I should have provided a little bit more kind of background on it. But the report is pretty brief. It just sort of summarizes briefly the things that were accomplished. And I would have to say that when I read through it, it probably didn't give enough credit to the great support and partnership that we've had with the old Monterey Foundation. So a lot of the things that were accomplished this past year were accomplished through their support and through funding that they were able to find for the city through the NCIP program. Did anybody have any questions about the report?
Any updates on the stables?
Yes. So regarding the stables, and Bill, Commissioner Wachowski can chime in if he would like, but it was approved by the Army that the stables be torn down, and then the question is just the cost of doing that work. And because of the dire situation that the city is in its budget, the city doesn't feel that they have sufficient funds at this time to do the demolition, which is very unfortunate. And the rough estimate for the cost is about $100,000. And that's from our public works director. And he said that it's, you know, a very rough figure. What they did think that they could do is after the structure has been removed, I guess there's asbestos involved and so forth, so that hazardous material. But after it's been removed, they would be able to put the, I don't remember the technical term for the dirt or whatever they would lay down afterwards, but they would be able to do that part, the city thought. But the other costs that they would need to identify funding somewhere else.
Does
Bill, is
the-
there anything you want to
does
add?
Does the estimate include any effort to recycle some of the material, or is that,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Is there some
And-
kind of grant program we can look to?
Well, one question would be whether or not the Old Monterey Foundation might be able to help us with some of those costs.
But is there a grant program for the reconstruction of historic structures that we / Old Monterey Foundation might apply to rather than trying to pull it all out of the Old Monterey Foundation? Is there maybe a national I'm at a loss for words.
Historic
The,
trust.
National Trust for Historic Preservation?
Yes, right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Do they have any kind of program for the rehabilitation of historic structures?
So that's a very good question. I think that that for this the section of stable that we're referring to, it's actually the demolition and removal, which I think is a little different than a restoration project. Is just, I know that eventually we want to then take the remaining stables and do something that is more like a restoration, and then, you know, an enactment of, you know, how they might have been used and so forth, right? I think that's the vision. But with this initial phase, it is the removal, which I'm not sure if there are grants for that or not, but that's a good question to see if there would be. I think that the challenge might be that, you know, that most funds are probably available for restoring things so that there's a viewable product at the end, rather than a removal so that you don't see it once the project's done.
Okay.
There
Well,
may
if-
be grants, though. I know some foundations give grants for environmental purposes, like we
Mhm.
have hazardous materials, and the building itself is a hazard if it falls down.
Yes.
We just have to investigate other foundations.
Right. So that's something that staff can definitely talk to Old Monterey Foundation folks, and we can look together to see what kinds of funding we might be able to identify. And if Bill wants to chime in, he's welcome to do so. Maybe he's not there. Are
Or he
there?
doesn't want to commit any funds.
Yes.
Any other questions for Inga? Shall we open it up for public comment and see if anyone has any questions?
Sure. So viewers who would like to comment on this may do so by dialing 831-225-0330. Enter the ID number 192 7648. And again, that number is 831-225-0330. Enter the ID number 1927648. So there are no callers.
Thank you, Francesca. Let's close
you.
public comment on that issue and move on to receive the update on budget reductions and staffing. Please.
Okay, so I had hoped that our assistant city manager was going to join us for this portion of the meeting, but unfortunately, he had a last-minute conflict. So right now, the city is being extremely cautious in moving forward with opening things up. As you'll know from over the weekend, there has been a recent spike in cases throughout California. And so now they're actually looking at shutting down some services in different counties. And luckily, we haven't been identified yet as a county that needs to move in that direction. But there's just a real cautiousness and hesitancy on the part of the city to open things up and bring folks back. So even though we were thinking that we would be using Ferguson funds for an artifact specialist, and that's a trust fund, so it doesn't directly impact the general fund, the city really wants to be hesitant at this point. So it's going to take a little while working with them before we're able to bring back a staff position. And then I think we really need a staff person working with me and with the commission in order to make a plan for reopening the museums. So that's sort of where we are at this point.
Any questions from the commission for Inga?
I have a real easy question. On packet
Sure.
page 20, near the bottom, you've got the positions listed. And I was just wondering what names go with those. Obviously, Inga is the first one. And Francesca's the second one, administrative. Then who are the last two? Just curious.
Are you looking at the chart?
Looking at
Yeah,
page,
little chart.
back at page 20 near the bottom.
Okay, so actually that said up until June 2nd, those were the staff members that we had. Those were the staff positions.
Oh, okay.
So the first one was Dennis's position. The second one was Claire's. The third one was Chalet. And then the final one was the all the museum docents and the artifact specialist and a project assistant who was Elizabeth Anderson. So those positions were laid off, but what the budget, so we have a new budget now, which is great. What the budget includes is funding for those PTS positions. So that very last line in that chart, those monies are there. And so the thinking that I had was that, okay, you know, as the need arises, we can then start to bring those positions back. And because of this precarious position we're in with the budget and with the restrictions, the city really wants to wait before they start using those funds.
So
Inga, can any of the museums, like the Presidio Museum or the Colton Hall Museum, be open with volunteers?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner Wachowski. So the idea would be, so for instance, the Lower Presidio Museum, that museum is run by volunteers when it's operating normally, but there's a staff position that oversees those volunteers. And so I really feel like we need at least one PTS staff position that's not my position, but somebody as my helper to oversee, bringing back volunteers and making sure they're trained and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely a possibility, Bill, but we would need, I would think, at least one PTS staff person to help run the volunteer program.
And as you said, right now, there's no timeline at all to get even a part-time person in?
Right. At this point, the timeline hasn't been set, but that's one of the things that I'm working on is wanting to establish that with our city manager.
I wonder if it would be appropriate for the commission to make a motion and ask the council to ask at least one part-time position, even a half-time position, so that those two museums could be reopened.
Well, and just another clarification, it sounds like I'm confused about whether museums don't have to open in order for there to still be a need for a half-time person. Like there needs to be a plan for opening, right? I mean,
Correct.
okay.
And there are things that come up. We get research questions still. There's somebody has to meet with the alarm technician.
We just asked about a grant, someone to research a grant, and that takes time. And okay, so but there's still, sorry, there's still precarious, or they're still sort of slowing down the hiring back because they're still not sure about the funds, but yet there is a, what did you call it? The Ferguson. I mean, there is a trust. So it sounds like I feel like I'm not quite sure I'm getting how secure this idea is of bringing someone back.
Correct. So the thinking is that every dollar spent now will not be available later. And so, for instance, when I asked, I thought, well, Ferguson funds seem like an obvious thing to do because it doesn't impact the general fund. And the thinking there is, well, depending on how things go with the general fund, that Ferguson fund is all the more important. So maybe it should be saved as a backup, as opposed to being spent now. But I think that we can make a pretty good case for at least having one 20-hour-a-week position funded. And when we're talking about PTS, these are unbenefited staff. And the idea is that you offer the position first to the folks that were laid off, of which 2 retired. So there's really only a third person who would be eligible. And if she doesn't want to return, then you have your artifact specialist who has had that position for several years who would be interested, or if something has changed in his life, then you have museum docents who could be interested. So there are people that would likely, want to continue working if we're able to offer those hours.
Could I ask how much money is in the Ferguson fund?
$75,000 approximately at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Is it invested or is it cash sitting someplace?
No, so the city does have an investment plan. So all of the funds that are in held in trust by the city are invested.
It just seems to me that it would be the Presidio Museum has a cadre of unpaid volunteers. The Colton Hall Museum has 2 or more docents that get a minimal amount of money. And our part-time person, half-time, Chalet, she doesn't make very much money. So at a very nominal cost, we can open up 2 museums in the summer when all the visitors are coming, and some of them have a historical bent and not all of them are just going to go to the beach or the aquarium. So again, I wondered if it would be appropriate for us to send a motion to the city council and ask them to consider this small use of the Ferguson funds or whatever to open up those two museums. And I can see the PBL, maybe let the Cannery Row group take that on. But those two museums almost run by themselves with just a little bit of overview.
So the PBL, one of the reasons why that one would be last also is just in terms of social distancing, that would be the hardest. Since it's used for group tours, it would be the hardest to accommodate the current restrictions. But I think both of the Presidio Museum and then also Colton Hall, if you have, so what museums are doing is they're providing directional arrows and so forth so that people don't, cross paths and interact with each other and violate social distancing restrictions. So I think that would be possible with either Colton Hall or the Presidio Museum. But the concern right now is that with this latest spike, they want to wait a little bit longer just to see that things have settled down again before trying to open up additional services.
But it seems like we're going to get more and more visitors. I mean, this July 4th weekend, last weekend, the Fisherman's Wharf and Cannery Row were completely packed. I bet you they're going to be packed all this weekend. The following week, the aquarium opens, so the visitors are coming. Is the city going to discourage visitors from coming?
So one of the things that the assistant city manager did was he reached out to the state parks, and they are leading tours, and they've agreed to add Colton Hall to their walking tours if we provide them with a script for promoting Colton Hall. So at least the exterior of Colton Hall would be promoted in that way. So that's one sort of partnership.
Oh, but they can't take them inside?
But not taking them inside, correct.
We got a lot of old buildings that people
do you know if the city has the final word on opening the museum, or is there some state or county regulation that we have to abide by to do that?
Let's see. So we have to be in compliance with the health orders. So that's a county health order. And then of course that's in compliance with the state. So that's good. But as far as the decision to reopen the museums, I believe ultimately that decision lies with the city council.
Okay. Second question.
Yes.
If we offered a job to Chalet,
correct.
Does that jeopardize any of her benefits from her previous employment or unemployment benefits now?
It does. And so as the city as a whole has been rehiring back a few people as part-time or offering part-time hours to people, they have found, and in the library's case, we've found people have turned us down because they said, no, that will jeopardize my unemployment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So I can certainly share the commission's concern with the city manager and assistant city manager that you urge us to move more quickly with bringing back a part-time staff member so that we can plan for reopening, if that seems accurate.
Well, I thought Bill was anxious to open the museum. I'm less anxious to push that and more anxious to have someone working when the decision is made. So if the city says you can open your museum, it's going to take us 3 weeks to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
But if Bill wants to make his point about opening earlier, I'd like to listen to it.
My point, John, would be to combine them all, that not just the city manager, and I guess I'll make a motion that the commission requests the city council to replace the part-time helper in the museum division and open up the Presidio Museum and the Colton Hall Museum as soon as feasible.
And I agree. If you add as soon as feasible, that gives them enough wiggle room to do it safely. And I agree with what you propose. But John, you were going to second that?
I second it just to get the discussion going.
Yeah. Again, we're going to get an onslaught of visitors, and we will be the whole summer. And it just seems appropriate to have those two museums open at a very, very nominal cost. I mean, we opened up the sports center with, I don't know how many employees are there now. There are quite a few employees. We're talking about a half-time employee and two people who are paid an hourly rate. In the scope of things, this is pretty darn small given the city's budget.
Any other discussion?
I have a clarifying question. So originally, the thinking had been that we could offer to bring Chalet back by offering her one of the part-time seasonal positions, which is not benefited. And the downside of that, of course, multiple downsides of that, but one is that she might say no, it jeopardizes her unemployment. So the budget that the council approved did not include her position in it. So it did not include the half-time cultural arts assistant position. So is the recommendation that that position be restored, or at the start, are we just interested in at least bringing back somebody as a part-time seasonal employee?
I think I would leave that up to you, Inga. It sounds like the latter would be better for you. Because Chalet, I mean, she might make more money on unemployment with that $600 or whatever. So I would leave that up to you, that there be some staff assistance to you, and then, the two docents or whomever we have up at Colton Hall, that they get paid a nominal sum.
Okay. So that at least that starts with what was budgeted, the budget that was approved by City Council.
And when you were discussing earlier the functions you've had to take on of checking every museum, making sure it's secure, emptying the dehumidifiers, that maybe you need somebody to do that for you.
Yes.
You may have a higher level of responsibility than emptying dehumidifiers.
Possibly. Yes.
So I think there would be great value in the employee that Bill's talking about. Not only for the museum, but it would free you up to do some other things that you need to do.
Right. And I think that any of those former employees, whether they were part-timers or whether they were part-time seasonal or part-time, they have part of the institutional memory that, we lost with all of the positions being laid off. And that's important to keep in mind as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Any further discussion? Shall we take a vote? Francesca, do you want to go down the list?
Oh,
voting on
we
this
can't hear
motion?
you. You're muted.
Francesca, you're
We
muted.
want to open public comments. There's no callers right now, but we can just do so for a moment.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. Let's open this for public comment before we vote.
Thank you. If anyone is watching that would like to make a comment, please dial 831-225-0330. Enter the ID number 1927648. And again, that number is 831-225-0330. 0330. Please enter 1927648.
Do we have any callers?
No, there are no callers. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll close public comment and let's vote on the motion, please.
Okay. Chair O'Neill.
Aye.
Okay. Vice Chair Wotowski.
Aye, aye.
Would you please
Commissioner
read?
I didn't get you 2 votes though.
Oh, no.
I think we want a restatement of the motion. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
Jacqueline?
Thank you.
And Bill, you
Thank
can
you.
correct me because I had planned to go back to the recording to ensure that I have it correctly because I know I missed a part. But that,
Well, Inga, I was gonna ask Inga, would you mind doing it with, making, the proper staffing? My motion simply is provide some staffing, part-time staffing for the museum that will help opening up the museums and also help Inga. And to also ask the council to have the Presidio Museum and Colton Hall Museum open as soon as feasible.
yes. And that's what I had then. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. And then Commissioner Castagna,
Yes,
Commissioner Evans,
Yes,
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Commissioner Sovereign,
Yes.
Commissioner Wall.
Yes.
Thank you. And Bill, you did say yes. I know you made the motion, so
I did.
thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I think that's all on our agenda today.
Mhm.
Now, the commissioners have an opportunity to make comments if they would like to do that. So, want to start alphabetically? How about you, John?
no comment.
Thank you. Bob?
well, there was some talk about my presenting the software that I built for the iPad, but I never got contacted about how to share a screen. So
I think we're going to do that for the July meeting.
okay.
Yes.
Because all I have to do is share my screen and I can show you around what I put together.
Oh, did we want to do that now?
We don't have to. We can wait till
Shall
July.
I think we'll
It's-
test it out
Okay.
first, probably. We want to
Can
test
we
it
do
out.
that according to the Brown Act?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah. So we'll have to agendize it for the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Kimber,
Uh,
comments?
Nothing much except just to say thank you to Inga for doing those little tasks like wiping the
Yes.
plastic down and all of that. That's incredible. It seems like
If we hire somebody to do that, though, Inga will have to train them.
yes. Well, and it almost seems as though I don't want to. This is going to sound really vague because I'm not sure of what my schedule is. But like, I'm no longer volunteering at the PBL, so it seems like something that I could come and help you do. But I don't know.
That's
Maybe
a
I'll
nice walk. Yeah, they're great views up there.
yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, more later on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mike, do you have any comments?
No.
You? Kathleen?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, you have any comments?
I just 2 quick comments. One, Inga, on the next agenda, if we don't have a history subcommittee, can we ask for volunteers to look at the path of history? And second, you sent out an email with monuments at the Lower Presidio. Do we have a hard copy of that? And would you mind sending that out to us the next time you send out our packet?
Sure, we do have hard copies, and I'd be happy to send out copies to all of you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Just like to mention that tomorrow, you finished, Bill?
Yes, I am.
Tomorrow is Claire's last day. We're gonna miss her. I want to thank the hand-delivered packets for all of our meetings. Really above and beyond. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank both Francesca and Inga for taking on the responsibility for our commission and doing such a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I don't know, I don't think I'm supposed to speak at this point, but I did want to share that there might be an article in the Coast Weekly or Monterey Weekly this week that has a photograph of the Declaration of Independence in Spanish from Colton Hall and talks about how Monterey has celebrated the 4th of July in previous years.
Thank you.
Cool. Good.
So that's it, unless anyone has anything else. And I move that we adjourn.
Well, what's the date of the next meeting?
It is July 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
That's okay.